Right now, someone who has never met you is making money off of every single hour you work. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's not a hot take. It's just how the modern economy was designed. While you're doing everything right, saving money, working harder, cutting back on the $7 coffee, the actual rules of wealth have been quietly rewritten right under your feet. Trillions of dollars are shifting into fewer and fewer hands, and most people won't even notice until they wake up one day and realize they own absolutely nothing. Parole visual suggestion: the granite statue businessman in the canyon, small stacks of cash on one ledge, towering skyscrapers on the other, camera slowly pulling back to reveal the massive gap between them. In this video, we're exposing the hidden machine driving the biggest wealth transfer in history, and exactly how you can flip the script before it's too late. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The numbers that don't add up: 0:45 to 3 o'clock. B-roll visual suggestion. Split screen. Graphic minus 1,985 house price versus average salary. Next to 2026 house price versus average salary. Script. Let's start with something your parents probably don't fully understand, because they didn't live through it the way you are. In the early 1980s, the average home in America cost about 3 times the average household income. Save for a decade, work a stable job, and the house was genuinely within reach. Today, the average home costs over 7 times the median household income. In cities like Los Angeles or New York, that number blows past 10 times. Here's the question I want you to sit with for a second. If wages had simply kept pace with productivity since 1970, the way they did for the 25 years before that, the average worker today would be earning over $23 an hour more than they currently do. That's not inflation. That's not the cost of living going up. That is a structural disconnect between how much value you create and how much of that value you're actually allowed to keep. B-roll visual suggestion. Line graph, productivity line rising steadily. Wages line flattening out around 1975, with a growing gap shaded in red. So here's a question for you. Do you think this gap closes on its own, or does it keep widening no matter who's in office? Drop your honest answer in the comments. I read every single one, because what you're about to see isn't bad luck. It's not millennials buying too much avocado toast. It's a machine, and it has 3 main gears. Let's break down the first one. Chapter 2. Gear 1. The asset economy vs. the wage economy. 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. B-roll visual suggestion. Animated split diagram. Wage economy, a person clocking in, versus asset economy, stocks, real estate, bonds ticking upward. 3-minute CTA. Subscribe. Ask script. Before we go further, if this is the kind of breakdown that actually makes sense of the news instead of just reacting to it, hit that subscribe button right now. We publish videos like this every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming in this series. Okay, Gear 1. The asset economy versus the wage economy. Here's the simplest way I can explain this. Imagine 2 people. Person A earns their money by trading time for dollars, a job, a paycheck, an hourly wage. Person B earns money because they own something, stocks, real estate, a business, and that thing generates income while they sleep. B-roll visual suggestion. 2 animated characters, one walking on a treadmill labeled 40 hours a week, the other lounging while a tree behind them grows dollar bills. Now here's the part that changes everything. Since the 1980s, asset prices have consistently grown faster than wages, sometimes 3 to 4 times faster. Think about what that actually means. If you're person A, your income creeps up a few percent a year, if you're lucky. If you're person B, your net worth can double in a decade just by owning things. This is why the top 10% of Americans now own roughly 93% of all stock market wealth. Not 50%, not 70%, 93%. B-roll visual suggestion. Pie chart animation. A tiny sliver representing the bottom 90%'s stock ownership. So when the stock market hits a new all-time high and the news celebrates it, ask yourself, who is actually celebrating? Here's a question for you. If you had $10,000 right now, would you put it into assets, or would you use it to pay down debt first? Genuinely curious what you choose. Comment below. This asset gap is Gear 1, but it doesn't explain the whole housing crisis by itself. For that, we need to look at who's actually buying the houses now, because it's not who you think. Chapter 3. Gear 2. The institutional landlord takeover. 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. B-roll visual suggestion. Drone footage style animation. A suburban neighborhood where houses slowly get tagged with corporate logos icons instead of sold signs script. Here's something that would have sounded like science fiction 20 years ago. In some US markets, institutional investors, not families, not first-time buyers, but actual corporations, are purchasing over 1 in every 4 homes sold. Companies you've probably never heard of, with names like Invitation Homes or Progress Residential, have quietly become some of the largest landlords in the entire country. One firm alone owns over 80,000 single-family homes. B-roll visual suggestion. Animated map of the US with dots multiplying rapidly in Sunbelt cities. Atlanta, Phoenix, Dallas. Think about the mechanics of this for a second. When you, an individual buyer, go to purchase a home, you're competing against a hedge fund that doesn't need a mortgage approval, can pay in all cash within days. Doesn't care about the price being slightly high because they're playing a 20-year game. Not trying to raise a family in it? B-roll visual suggestion. Side-by-side auction-style animation. A family bidding with a mortgage pending stamp. A faceless corporation bidding with an instant CASH approved stamp. You're not just competing with other buyers anymore. You're competing with Wall Street. And Wall Street doesn't get tired, doesn't get emotionally attached, and never needs a starter home. It just needs a return on investment. 8-minute CTA. Like the video. Quick pause. If your jaw is on the floor right now the way mine was when I first researched this, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to see this before making a huge financial decision. Here's the uncomfortable question. If corporations can outbid you every single time, what does the American dream of homeownership even mean anymore? Is it still a dream, or is it becoming a product that only institutions can afford to hold? Chapter 4. Gear 3. The Invisible Tax of Cheap Money, 9 o'clock to 11:30. B-roll visual. Suggestion. Animated Federal Reserve building with money printing, flowing out like water into different pipes labeled stocks, real estate, corporations. Script. Now let's talk about the part almost nobody explains correctly. Interest rates and money printing. When the Federal Reserve keeps interest rates near zero, which it did for most of the 2010s and again during the pandemic, borrowing money becomes incredibly cheap. Sounds good, right? Cheap loans for everyone? Here's the catch. It's cheap for whoever can access the biggest loans fastest. That's not you refinancing your $2,000 credit card. That's institutions borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars to buy up real estate, stocks, and entire companies, because when money is nearly free, the smartest move isn't to save it. It's to buy every appreciating asset you can get your hands on. B-roll visual suggestion. Simple visual metaphor. Water flowing downhill. Filling up asset buckets first before ever reaching the wages bucket at the bottom. This is sometimes called the Cantillon effect. The idea that whoever gets access to new money first benefits the most, while everyone else deals with the resulting inflation after the fact once prices have already gone up. So when you hear inflation is at 3%, understand this. The price of eggs went up 3%. The price of appreciating assets, the ones the wealthy already own, went up far more. That's not a coincidence. That's the mechanism working exactly as designed. Do you think the Fed should be more careful about who benefits first when it makes these moves? Or is this just an unavoidable side effect of managing a massive economy? I want to hear both sides in the comments. This one gets heated, and that's okay. Chapter 5. How this plays out if nothing changes 11:30 to 13 o'clock. B-roll visual suggestion. Time-lapse style animation. A city skyline where apartment towers replace single-family homes over 2026 gives 2035 gives 2045. Script. So where does this actually go if the current trajectory continues? Some economists project that if institutional home ownership keeps growing at its current pace, we could be looking at a future where a meaningful share of an entire generation simply never owns their own home, not because they didn't work hard enough, but because the math was rigged against them from the start. Renting becomes permanent. Wealth building through home equity, historically the single biggest driver of middle-class wealth in America, quietly disappears from millions of people. B-roll visual suggestion. A wealth staircase graphic where the bottom steps are removed, leaving people stuck at the base while a few reach the top. And here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't an accident, and it isn't a natural disaster. It's the predictable result of policy decisions, tax incentives, and monetary choices made by people who already own the assets, benefiting from them. So the real question isn't, Will this get fixed by itself? It won't. The real question is, what do you do, personally, knowing all of this? Chapter 6. How to flip the script, 13 o'clock to 14:30. B-roll visual suggestion, tone shift, brighter lighting. The granite statue businessman animation now shown stepping across the canyon using a small bridge made of stacked coins. Script. Here's the good news buried in all of this. Once you understand the machine, you can use pieces of it too. You may not be able to outbid a hedge fund on a single-family home tomorrow, but you can start closing the gap between the wage economy and the asset economy in your own life. Get exposure to assets, even in small amounts. Index funds, REITs, real estate investment trusts. Let regular people own a slice of the same appreciating assets institutions do, without needing $80,000 in cash. Understand that cheap debt used strategically, not recklessly, is a tool the wealthy have used for a century. Learn how leverage actually works before you fear it or misuse it. Stop measuring your progress only in wages. Ask a different question every year. Did my net worth grow? Did my assets grow? Not just, did my paycheck grow? B-roll visual suggestion. Simple checklist graphic appearing on screen with each point. This machine wasn't built to be fair, but it was built with rules, and rules can be learned, understood, and used. Outro 14:30 to 15 o'clock B-roll visual suggestion. Final wide shot of the granite statue businessman, now standing confidently at the edge of the canyon, sun rising behind the skyscrapers. Script. So someone who has never met you is still making money off your labor today. That part hasn't changed. But now you understand why. And understanding the machine is the first step to no longer being just a passenger inside it. CTA, share the video. If this video changed the way you think about money, houses, or the economy even a little, do me one favor. Share it with one friend who needs to hear this too. Not 10 people. Just one. That's how this reaches the people who actually need it. Drop a comment telling me which gear surprised you the most. The asset gap, the institutional buyers, or the Fed's role. I read every single one, and it genuinely shapes what we cover next. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.